this is one of my favorite things of all time. Hey guys, it's Christian from Lost in Discovery, and today we are going to be reviewing and talking about The Heroes by Joe Abercrombie. Now, the way I want to structure this review is to have it completely spoiler free, because for two reasons. One, if you've already read The Heroes, you are a massive fan of Joe Abercrombie at this point. I think I'll save a spoiler cast or something after I finished all the standalones. I enjoyed this book so much. I want to kind of aim this review to people who still have yet to read Joe Abercrombie or are still early on in their Joe Abercrombie journey. Okay, so a little bit about this book before I get stuck into the review. This book is the 5th book in Joe Abercrombie's First Law series. You've probably heard of the First Law trilogy. I've talked about it a lot on the channel. Joe Abercrombie is known for his grim, dark style of fantasy, even though I wouldn't classify it that. Generally, I would say it's a gritty, realistic take on the fantasy genre with a truckload of dark humor thrown throughout it. And we all know that he's very well known for his characters, but his plot is definitely underrated by people. He has improved so much each book, and it is at a whole other level compared to where he started with The Blade itself. All the way now in The Heroes, he's at a whole other level of writing and storytelling and characterization. It makes me want to reread everything, even though I'm not up to date on the series yet. So what is The Heroes specifically about? Well, The Heroes is about a 3-day battle, and the entire plotline and storyline of this book happens over 3 days. It is split into those sections: day 1, day 2, day 3, and an aftermath. The battle is between the Union and the North. Imagine the Union to be your classic kind of developed knights in shining armor, and the North to be, imagine like almost similar to the wildlings in Game of Thrones or A Song of Ice and Fire. A bit more developed than the wildlings, but certainly a rougher type, kind of your blokey blokes, as an Australian would say. And this, without a doubt, is the most engaging battle I have ever experienced. Period. Including Lord of the Rings movies, including all that stuff, okay, all of it, because Battle of the Bastards, all of it. This is my favorite battle I've ever experienced, and one of my favorite things I've experienced. Period. Like, it's that good. I will try to articulate to you why I think it's that good. So this story is marketed as a standalone. So technically, yes, this can be your first Joe Abercrombie book. Although I strongly recommend you to read the previous First Law books, because this book follows on chronologically from those novels and has reoccurring characters that show up from those novels. And mind you, they are still really well represented here, and many of the reoccurring characters are kind of secondary to your main protagonist in the story. But knowing those people and knowing their motivations and knowing their inner workings so well, because that's what Joe Abercrombie does when you're in these people's heads, enhance this book to a whole other level for me. Let me tell you a little bit about the story and how it's kind of structured and put together. So with the battle between the Union and the Northmen, of course we have perspectives from both sides, both male, female, Northern, and Union. These are some of Joe Abercrombie's most distinct characters since The Blade itself, with people like Glockter. The star of the show for me, which is kind of hard to say because they're all so distinct, but I feel like the star of the show for me is Bremer Dan Gorst. And Bremer Dan Gorst you would recognize from the previous First Law books. I won't really go into why you'd recognize him in case you are coming to this completely unknowing about the world, but he is a good friend of the king, and the king loves him so much and doesn't want him to get into the battle. He's kind of sent him as the observer of this battle to send back letters to let him know how everything's going for the Union. Problem is, he's basically the Mountain from Game of Thrones. He's a giant badass warrior, but at the same time, his voice is incredibly high pitched. So everyone's scared of him, but the second he turns his back, they make fun of him and laugh about him. Basically, Gorst has made a mistake in a previous novel, which has kind of demoted him in some ways. Even though the king does love him, he's kind of been demoted at the same time to this royal observer point of view. And this is a character, if this was to be translated onto the screen, this guy would have under 20 lines the entire movie as a main protagonist. It's very similar to how Abercrombie wrote Glockter, where there is a plethora of inner dialogue that is so sadistic and hateful and done with the world that is entertaining to a whole other level. This guy's bloodlust, he basically copes with his depression through violence, and the way it's phrased is so comical but so realistic at the same time. He basically will have an entire page of inner dialogue and then just say yes or no to people, and then by the time he said yes or no, that person has already walked away. It's just beautiful. Okay, so we have Gorst, and I'd say the highlight on the northern side of the story is Curden Craw. And Curden Craw is just this kind of old named man, veteran. He's been in a million battles. He's a straight edge. He's kind of just like a good dude doing what the Northmen do, fighting war and leading people. And he's kind of tired of this whole lifestyle of battling for nothing and just the whole useless element of war. He's in this constant struggle between being such a competent leader and being such a competent role model for his people, but at the same time wanting to kind of hang it up and seeing how pointless it is. That's a huge theme of this book, just the pointless nature of war, and that it's all basically a massive lead up to what's going to be a negotiation anyway, or a complete decimation of an entire people. So this is not a glorified look at war whatsoever. It's basically a huge anti-war book with a lot of laughs in between somehow, and it's not in poor taste. It's just beautifully crafted British humor that had me pissing myself for most of the story. And to reiterate why this was my favorite battle sequence and my favorite battle experience between movies, TV shows, and novels was because how Abercrombie wrote some of these sequences and how he highlighted the horrors of war so well. So the way he structures these battle scenes is you will cut to someone's point of view, like a random soldier in the battle, and they'll be running in and they'll be doing their thing. You hear their entire thought process, why they're here, their family back home, their hopes and dreams and fears and sorrows, and then they die. And then the chapter will cut to the person who killed them, and you get their inner dialogue and their thoughts and their dreams and fears and sorrows, and then they die, and it keeps cutting between the killer and the victim, and the chapter progresses like this. It's a big domino effect, and it is done so effectively. It just shows how every soldier in this battle is a person with a story, and they're their own protagonist. And we see so many lives get cut short from either typical battle scenarios or accidents. Somebody accidentally might swing their sword. Oh, I killed my friend. Yeah, that's war. And you laugh at times because it's just so, you don't expect it, right? You know that nervous laughter you get sometimes where you're just like, oh my God, okay. But when you think about it more, it's just such an effective storytelling device. Actually, one other point of view I will talk about is Beck. And Beck is this kid, like a 17-year-old, who has a father who was a very feared and strong Northman, and he is so keen to go to war, and he is so fired up, just a classic fiery, ignorant teen who gets swept up into this and is left in completely over his head. And this is what I really enjoyed about Abercrombie. He kind of took every sort of war stereotype, like the battle-hardened veteran, the new recruit, the guys who are just the flag bearers who are sitting around having a chat for 3 days and see no action. The thieves, the wizard who's pulling the strings. He covers every base of what would encompass a fantasy battle as well as, you know, a classic medieval battle. And he makes it real. He makes it so realistic, and you empathize with literally every character you read, and you completely understand them. There is no doubt in your mind of their motivations, their thoughts. You know every single damn character in this book, unlike you've known anyone else in any other book. In this short of a time span, he can get you to feel like you know a character intimately after one chapter, and nothing else has done that for me. It's so impressive. So we've got engaging battles, engaging characters, and the plot. If you have read the other first lore books, this might seem like a inconsequential 3-day battle if you haven't read the other first lore books, but if you have, you know this has so many implications. If you've read the other first lore books and you see what the background characters are doing because you know them so well, you can extrapolate this, and it's so exciting to see where this world is going. What really ties this together is Joe Abercrombie's writing style, which has really come into its own by this book. It was even better writing, I would say, than Best Served Cold, even though I can't pick a favorite between those books. They are just like almost equals to me, depends on my mood. But the writing was his strongest here, and some of his lines can be so absurdly funny, but so beautiful at the same time. It's just something you have to experience. There's nothing like a Joe Abercrombie character or a Joe Abercrombie metaphor. This is one of the most enjoyable experiences I've had since getting back into reading, and I will reread the heroes many times throughout my life. I love First Lore as much as I love any of the Sanderson series at this point. This is one of my favorite things of all time. I want you guys to please give Joe Abercrombie a shot, because I know the Blade itself doesn't have much of a plot, and the characters are the standout, and it can feel meandering at times, and yes, it does, but as it progresses, each book gets better and better and better and better, and because of that, the previous books get better in hindsight. I'm going to stop ranting now, it's going on too long. I've lost most of you, but the ones who are here, thank you so much for watching. I'll be back with new videos. Read First Lore. Read First Lore. Just stop what you're reading. It's good, but this is better, in my opinion. Thanks for watching, guys, and I hope you have a good weekend, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.